Well, as you can see, we have a little bit of a gap up front. That's because of two reasons. One, the fender on this side needs to come forward, and two, this grill is tweaked out a little bit, so it does require a little push to get it lined up. But we're close, so we'll make some fender adjustments. Not bolted down yet, and we'll make some adjustments up here and get these two together. I wanted to zoom in and show you this gap here, just to show you the difference between new parts and old parts that may or may not have had some work done to them. They're touching at the top, they're touching at the bottom, but we've got anywhere between an eighth down here up to a 1/4 inch gap moving up. This is what you run into with new panels. They are not going to fit exactly. Now that we got the front clip semi together and in place, and the core support is bolted down to the frame, we're going to go ahead and leave this where it's at for now. We know everything is working here. We can go back and do all the final welding later. We've got the fenders fit back here. We've got the doors semi-adjusted. Everything's lining up pretty well. We're going to leave the inner fenders out while we're doing the engine fitment and the transmission fitment, because it's going to be a lot easier with them out of the way. Also, we may have to modify one of them from what I've read. So next, the engine. Let's go get the engine. So what we have here is a Ford V8, which people commonly refer to as a Coyote engine. This one came out of a 2020 F-150, I believe, and it comes with the 10-speed automatic transmission and the transfer case that would have came in that truck as well. The customer was able to purchase this through a company that sells these out of wrecked vehicles. So what's really cool is we know this truck was in a rear-end collision, not a front-end collision, and it had super low mileage on it. Yes, it's a used engine, but it's pretty much brand new. So we've got to get this in there. Now that is not a simple 5-minute ordeal. We need to take the exhaust manifolds off of this. And as you can see, this engine is super wide. So there's some trimming that's probably going to need to be done as well. Also a little bit of concern with the length. From the front of the engine to the tail shaft on this, it's close to 6 feet long, which doesn't seem crazy. But in a vehicle that's not that long, it may be an issue. We're probably going to end up with a pretty short drive shaft in the rear, but that's not a problem. We may have to do some pinion angle adjustments as well. So we're going to go ahead and get the unnecessary things stripped off of here to get this set in there, and then rig up some kind of contraption to hang it from the hoist so we can test fit it and see how it goes. Well, as you can see, we've got our engine suspended and we're trying to install it. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any help with me today, so this is a huge pain in the ass. Now, this would be way easier if one, the body was off, or two, the front was out. But I've already started tacking this front core support in, which is welded to panels that are welded to the cowl. So once you start doing that, it is no longer removable. Okay, that's probably why the old one was cut out up here so they get the engine in and out. Anyway, we're going to keep pitching this thing in there and see if we can get it to go. If not, we'll pull it back out and plan B, I guess. I really don't know. We've got a kit here, and this is from BC Broncos. Oh, let's let that focus a little bit better. BC Broncos, right and left plates. You can see in the picture there. There are the plates in there. And we're going to have to take these off. Now, this is where things get a little tricky. We also did unbolt our starter down here, and we removed these two coolant lines. These coolant lines go from the front of the vehicle to the oil, well, the other way. Front of the vehicle to the oil cooler that's located down under the back of the engine. We do have a little more clearance on this side. We are going to have to remove this canister to get it out of the way. For those of you who don't know, on most engines, one cylinder head sits further than the other. This is not true on every setup, but most V8 engines, that is the case. Now, as far as the inside look here, you can see our transmission here. We are clearing right now, but we'll get down on the ground and look at the transfer case, see what we can see down here. And right now, it is clearing, but it is pretty tight up here. We're going to leave it like this for now and start working on getting some of these other things moved out of the way so we can get it all the way in. as you just saw, we had to remove the AC compressor, the alternator, and we also removed the oil filter adapter housing. Not only did this give us just a little bit better line of sight on what we're trying to do, it freed up some areas where they were touching and hitting the frame and not allowing us to get this fitted. Now in the future, we will go back and we'll have to do relocation kits on a lot of these things on the front and move them so they are in an accessible location that is not rubbing on the frame or hitting something. There are a tremendous amount of things that are in the way on this truck. One of these things in particular is this cross member right here. Now, looking online at other builds, they really don't touch on what they did with that cross member, but it's in the way. So we're going to remove it. We're going to just weld a temporary bar across here to keep the frame's structural integrity intact while we're doing this, and we'll cut that out of the way and go ahead and continue on. Alright, we got that cross member cut out, as you can see. We just did a rough cut. We'll go back and clean that other stuff up later. But you can see one of the first problems you have is oil pan's pretty much touching the axle. So we're going to have to do a suspension lift or a different oil pan there as well, which seems pretty common with these swaps. The motor mounts are pretty much lined up. Got a little bit of clearance. Let me see if you can see it better with the light. A little bit of clearance back there. Not much. Engine needs to go back just a little bit more, but way better. We're getting there. All right, that's going to wrap up this episode. So let's talk about where we got. We got everything moved out of the way. We've got the engine and transmission unloaded, hooked up, set in the vehicle. We're getting close. We got to do a little more trimming to get the engine to go in, and then obviously we're going to have to go back and do that cross member. We also have to remove the exhaust manifolds, the alternator, the AC compressor. There are several different relocation kits for the front drive accessories available. Not sure which ones we're going to use yet. We still have to do some transfer case transmission cross member mounting, which we have a cross member already for it. Hopefully that'll line up. So next time we should have the engine mounted, the cross member for the transmission transfer case mounted as well, and move on to finishing the sheet metal work and getting ready for body removal. So if you have any questions about anything I did, and I'm sure you do, because I have questions about what I've done, just, feel free to comment below. If you got tips or tricks, advice, you've done this before with a Gen 3 Coyote engine, and you'd like to, give us your input. We're not going to be mad about it. Until next time, happy hot rodding.